Okay, so welcome and thank you for coming. Today's workshop is on technology-driven formative assessment, and we'll talk a little bit about what that means and kind of how to implement that. A lot of that's going to depend on the circumstances in which you find yourself, if you're teaching in person or online, and the number of students that you have, and so on, your discipline as well. My name is Kevin Harris. I'm an instructional support coordinator here at the Center for Innovative Teaching and Learning. I support faculty with a variety of different teaching and learning needs, largely focused on technology. Much of that has been Blackboard focused as we've made our transition from Blackboard Original to Ultra, but now that's expanding out as kind of time permits. So if you have any questions or concerns about what we cover here, or anything else related to teaching and learning or technology and teaching, you can feel free to email me directly at kevin.harris@niu.edu or at CITL, that's CITL, @niu.edu. Prior to this, I earned a master's in teaching from Johns Hopkins, and then I spent 11 years as a classroom teacher at the high school level, mostly in private schools and also at international schools. So a fair amount of experience with formative assessment. And so we'll look at some of the tools that we have here, some of the native tools that we have in Blackboard, and then also some kind of third-party tools that we can also use. Our objectives for the day are, one, just to make sure that we have some sort of common definition of formative assessment. And then also, by the end of this, you should be able to kind of access and implement a variety of tools that may be available to you. So this is from a guide that we have on the CITL website. I'll link this, well, it's linked here below, but I'll also send it out in the email. And according to this guide, formative assessment provides feedback and information during the instructional process while learning is taking place and while learning is occurring. Formative assessment measures student progress, but can also assess your own progress as an instructor. Primary focus of formative assessment is to identify areas that may need improvement. These assessments are typically are not graded and act as a gauge for students' learning progress and to determine teaching effectiveness. It's a little bit wordy. How it's often been explained to me, I had a principal who harped quite a bit on formative assessment was assessments for learning, whereas summative assessments are assessments of learning. So whether or not you use that language, formative assessment, it's certainly something that you're probably doing regularly in your classes. Whether if you have an in-person class, that may just be question and response or call and response type questions, walking around, checking over students' notes, one-on-one conversations that you may have. Maybe I'll have students give little short presentations or do think, pair, share activities. All of these things are formative assessments that we do all the time. And I think we take them for granted how easy it is to do in-person courses. And then sometimes when we move those courses online, we lose some of those pieces, right? And so we kind of lose track of where students are in that moment. And it makes it a little bit more difficult for us as instructors to then adjust our teaching to make sure that their needs, their learning needs are being met. So before we go any further, if we could take a moment to introduce ourselves. If you could just tell me your name, either what you do here or what you teach. And if you're teaching, are you teaching primarily in person or online? That may help us determine which tools would best fit your needs. Whoever would like to start, feel free to unmute yourself.
Hi, I can go. My name is Ashley. I work for the nursing department. I teach mainly in-person clinicals and lecture.
Excellent. Thank you, Ashley.
Oh, does my mic sound weird? Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you, Ann. There's a little bit of feedback, but I think it's okay for this.
Okay. Yeah, I teach psychology mostly in person.
Okay, great.
Hi, everyone. I'm Kevin, and I work at the Center for Innovative Teaching and Learning. I'm not active in an online or face-to-face course at the moment, but prior to this, I taught in higher ed for 29 years, art history and English language learners.
Great, thanks, Kevin. And then in your courses, how have you or how are you currently using formative assessments? Do you have any examples, whether that be pencil and paper or technology driven?
In an online class, I would frequently use non-graded, we can call them knowledge checks now, we call them comprehension checks, but non-graded. But that would be in the form of either short writing prompts that would have students summarize their understanding of an article that they just read, for example, or even multiple choice, short, like 5-question multiple choice quizzes that they could do repeatedly until they scored 100%. But they were not part of the formal grade. So they were, and then in the multiple choice, when they submitted an answer, they always got feedback. If it was right or wrong, they always got feedback, confirmatory feedback, or feedback that would help guide them to the correct answer.
And that was automatically built in, the feedback
Yes.
responses?
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Thanks, Kevin.
I'm a little newer to the NIU assessment system, but for nursing, we do hands-on checkoffs for skills. We do quizzes in class and at home, and also proctored exams. And then there's also writing, and then assessment checkoffs and things like that. So a lot of different kinds of in-person, online, individual assessments, as well as independent study and a lot of writing.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you. So some of the things that we'll look at today, we'll look at tools that are native to Blackboard. Those are going to certainly be the easiest to implement and have students access because they're already on your Blackboard page, most likely. We'll look at some LTI tools that, again, that we can link it directly from Blackboard, and they can tie into our Blackboard, the other parts of our Blackboard system as well. And then we'll look at a few web-based tools. Some of those are free tools and some are paid, and we can talk about the advantages of both of those. And then we'll do a quick wrap up. And if you have any questions, again, feel free to stop me anytime as we move through this. You can save them until the end if you'd like, but it will probably be better for you and anyone else if you just unmute and interrupt. Most of this will be a live demo, so please forgive me if there's any tech glitches or errors that happen. That sometimes is just a part of having these live demos. The last thing I want to talk about before I jump into the demos is what should we consider when selecting the tools? The most important thing with technology integration and tech tools is that they actually fit the purpose that you're trying to achieve. Is this tool appropriate for your learning outcomes or your essential questions or the goals of your course? Sometimes we'll see cool technology presented and we're like, yeah, let's do that. I want to use this, immediately. But it doesn't really fit what we're trying to do. And so it's taking away from the actual student experience. So just making sure that the tech aligns with your goals. And then also understanding like how much setup time and prep time it's going to take you, either outside of class or teaching the students how to effectively use these tools. Again, we should consider that when we're making these choices. If your class is online or in person, class size. Some of these tools are really great if you have a small class of maybe 20 or 30 or fewer, and other tools will work better on classes that maybe a few hundred students. Again, is it free or paid? If it's free, it's really important to look at how are they funded? Like, what is their model? So if they're not taking money from you, they're probably taking something else from you or your students, which is data. So what information are they collecting and what are they doing with that? It's important to kind of keep that in mind. And then if it's paid, what is the pay model? Some of these tools are teacher paid, so you would pay for a subscription and then students can access the course. And some of them are student paid where you have free access, but then each individual student has to pay for a license. And then if that's the case, then you need to look into what your department policy is on that and how they go about actually billing and accessing those issues. And then as a kind of along with that issue with free, is it free? Like just take a look at any privacy or data information that you can find on that tool. And you can always reach out to us here at CITL and we can help you with some of this as well. And I'll jump out of this. And I'll jump into a Blackboard course that I created. So like I said, the easiest tools, most accessible tools for you are going to be the ones that are already built into Blackboard. They're free and they can be used in really any kind of class modality. So if you're in person or if you're online, if it's a small course or a large course, these are easy to use. And it's easy to kind of set and adjust them as needed. So I'll start with discussion boards because I don't want to spend much time on them. Especially for online classes and courses that don't meet regularly in person, a discussion board can be a great place for you to access student understanding. So you propose questions, students respond to them, they can respond to each other, and it gives you a chance to kind of see where they are in their process. And then you can make adjustments to your course as needed. You can provide feedback right there in the discussions. You can add corrections, you can add links, you can add additional information, or you can just glance at it and see, yeah, these students have a great understanding of this topic. I can now, comfortably move on to the next, objective or topic without, too much concern. When you set up your discussion boards in Blackboard, you can either have them appear on your main page or in the discussion tab. And you'll do that in the settings. And then by default, discussions are not graded, which kind of fits into that formative assessment idea. You can make them graded if you'd like, but again, if it's trying to influence your instruction or guide your instruction, keeping it not graded is fine. You just post your question, they respond, and then you can go into student activity and see, who's responding and what they're saying, and so on. So it's easy to access. They're really easy to set up. And then with the responses, they'll get this text editor where they can add links, they can add text, they could add video clips in there. There's a wide range of things that they can do. Most people are pretty comfortable with discussion boards, so I'm going to leave that one there. One thing I will note is that I'm going to touch on a few AI tools as well. I mean, since we're here, I might as well mention that they exist. So you can also auto-generate discussion questions. And you can select course items. You could type in a description. Otherwise, it'll pull information from your course. You can set the complexity and the types of questions that you want it to ask, generate, and then you can select, you can review and select the options that it produces and add them to your course or not. With all of the AI components in Blackboard, they want to make sure that the instructors are in control, so it won't automatically put anything in your course. You can review it, you can edit it, you can throw it away, and then you have to actually manually click add for that to go in to your course.
Kevin?
Yes, go ahead, Kevin.
Before you close that, just
Oh,
I'm looking at, that's okay.
Sorry.
I was looking at the cognitive level of the questions that were generated. And it looks to me like those cognitive levels, they're aligning that with Bloom's taxonomy. Is that correct?
That is correct. Yeah. So they pull these from Bloom's taxonomy, and then if you click Inspire Me, it'll kind of give you a random selection of those.
Yeah.
And then the same with this complexity. So kind of like it really covers kind of K-12 through higher ed. So if you put it on low, it's going to give you questions that are more appropriate for younger students. And if you crank that up to high, it's going to give you obviously more complex question types. Additionally, if you teach a course in another language, you can also use the output selector and select that. I don't know if that's relevant to anyone here today, but that might be relevant to people who come back and check out the video. We will discard here. Yep. Blackboard also recently issued forms. Forms by design are formative. They don't have they're not graded by default. And you can, just like setting up how the tests work in Blackboard, you create a form, you click the plus sign, and then you have some question options. It has the Likert question, which doesn't exist in any of the other Blackboard assessment tools. You might use this as like what we used to call exit tickets or exit slips would be an example. So you have a lecture or a course, and then right at the very end, you may have the students go on and kind of rate their understanding of that topic, and then you could have them, provide some follow-up questions or, give a 3-sentence summary of what you learned today. And then again, when those come in, you'll have the submissions here, and you can quickly kind of scan some or all of those, really depending on kind of what your goals are. If you're just wanting kind of a general understanding of as if the students are comprehending, you may not have to read every single one. You could just randomly select a few and see where they are. Yep. So those are forms similar to the test feature, except it has the Likert question, and then by default it's not a graded item, so you don't have to select point values for any of these. Another one would be.
Can I ask a question about that one?
Yes, please.
Yeah, does that allow you to see a graph of like if you had a multiple choice, could you quickly show the class the graph
That's a great
of
question.
results?
I don't know off the top of my head, and I don't have one here that has answers in it. I'll have to check that. I don't remember what this actually looks like when
Okay,
it's.
thanks. I
when
just
there's
wanted to see if it could be like that. Oh God, what's that? Kahoot thing?
Yeah. I don't know if it gives you. Yeah, I want to test it before I comment. I'm not exactly
Okay.
positive.
All right.
I think
Go ahead, Kevin.
I think for the form specifically, what Blackboard calls form and the Likert scale, is only the Likert scale rating. And my understanding is that you cannot see like a chart or a graph of the responses.
Okay.
Okay,
Yeah,
thanks.
And again, I appreciate, Kevin, that you'll check on that. I don't want to misrepresent, but I looked at that before and I couldn't, or maybe my problem was I couldn't figure out how to see that if it was generated. I just couldn't find it.
Yeah.
Same here.
Yeah,
I looked for it as well, and I couldn't find it.
Okay.
Yeah, okay.
I think that's correct. And we can look at a couple other things too, like if we can. Well, I don't know if we can, so I'm not going to say anything. I was wondering if maybe we could download these and then kind of compile it, but then you're taking extra steps, and I'm not sure. The other one in a very similar type tool would just be a simple quiz that you create on here in Blackboard. They're fast, they're simple to set up, and then you can adjust the point value as you see fit. So you could just make them all out of 0 points, or just not count it in your grade. The one tool I'm going to show here is this auto-generated. And so what I did was I just clicked the plus sign, auto-generated. And so let's say you assigned a reading for homework and you want to kind of see student understanding prior to starting the course. You can use this. You could obviously generate your own questions, but you can select from course items here. And I added a document here from a PDF, and I'll select that as an item. And then it will run, again, I can set the complexity and the number of questions and the type of questions. And this will then generate that number of questions for me, and I can kind of pick and choose. It actually does a pretty decent job of scanning the text and generating relevant questions. It's important, again, that if you use this to read through it yourself and just confirm, check for if there's any sort of bias or if it's kind of putting out information that doesn't seem accurate to your reading. But I'm just going to throw these two in here. You can have students create, you can generate this fairly quickly. And then as class is starting, you can have them do this the first 5 minutes. You can view the results and then use that to guide your instruction for that class period. And really the setup for you is quite minimal and not too time consuming here. And then again, with these, you would want to just change the question values or the point values to 0. And then there's no impact on the grade. So pretty straightforward things these are things that you could do in person, in an in-person class or an online class, and they would work just as well. The nice thing about these tools is that you could use them if you have 5 students or if you have 500 students, and the amount of work that is required from you doesn't really change. So easy to set up, easy to use, and work in a variety of formats. There's also the new Ultra documents. So I didn't wasn't very creative in setting up a document. I just threw a PDF in it. But with the new Ultra documents, they have knowledge check questions now that you can add to kind of check their understanding. So you could actually build out some of your course material in these documents and then throw in some knowledge checks. Right now, it's only multiple choice. I think they have plans to expand the question types, but currently it's just multiple choice. And so I'm going to edit content here, and then you just click again, like everything else in Blackboard. You find the purple plus, and then you click knowledge checks, and then you just put in your question and your choices, and then you can give them feedback for correct answers or incorrect answers. And then at the end, once they start submitting, you'll start getting some of that data. For you as the instructor, it'll look like this when you log in. So you'll see the number of students that have attempted, the number of attempts that they took, and the correct answers. It'll also generate a difficulty rating. I don't know what influences that, so I wouldn't put too much. I don't know. I wouldn't rely too heavily on that as a value, but it is there. It is an option. And from the student perspective, let's do a student preview really quickly. They'll see it like this. They'll read the question, and then they'll pick their answer and click submit, and then they'll see if it's correct or not. And they can reset and change their answers and try as many times as they would like. As Kevin was saying, sometimes I think you were saying that when you would give them like unlimited attempts to kind of work through this. And so, they'll know maybe I need to go back and reread this, or, I've got it. I can move on now. Save. And then now, from my view as the instructor, I didn't register for my preview user. But if I had been a real student, I would then have some of this data here that I could, again, use to kind of influence what I'm teaching either that day or if I need to prepare anything going forward. So those are the tools that are natively built into Blackboard. You could also use the assignment tool. And there are some others as well. The journal tool as well. And if that fits your course and what you're trying to do, you could build those in and kind of work from there. Some of the other tools that we have, you can add directly from Blackboard as well. These LTIs. I'm going to go over a few. One of them is Kaltura quizzes. So Kaltura is our video storage platform. You can create video. You can add videos from YouTube if you'd like, and then build in questions to those, or you can create your own videos. So this would be, I think, probably more ideal if you're doing either like a flipped classroom where you're giving some lectures at home for students to watch, or if it's an online course. You can upload your videos, and then you can build in questions along the way to kind of see how students are doing. There's an open-ended question and a option and a multiple choice question option that you can build in. Once they start answering and responding to them, you can then go in to the media space, your media space page, and review their answers from there. You add these tools by clicking a plus sign and then going to Content Market. There are a whole number of tools in here. Some of them may be relevant to your discipline and your department, and others probably aren't. So you can feel free to browse through here, though. For the Kaltura videos, this one was just a YouTube video. Let me actually do it from Student Preview. They'll click launch. And then right at the beginning, it lets them know that there are questions. It lets them know that there are questions that they're going to have to answer. They'll click continue. They'll watch the video, and then as it plays, they'll see these little indicators of where the questions are going to be. Give it a second to load. All right. Well, it may be having an issue right now, but typically this works fine. As you get to those questions, the questions will pop up. Students can click the answer, click submit. If it's an open-ended question, they can type in the response and click submit, and so on. And I know that you've all used these because you did the ethics and sexual harassment training, and one of the pieces of the training was the quiz video like this. So you had a little experience with the tool as well. And then you can kind of set, like, are they able to go back? Are they able to change responses? Can they skip ahead or skip back or not? You have control of all of those settings. And again, if you have, with this or with any of these other tools, I'm kind of just scanning them and going to offer some ideas on how you might use them. But if you want like more in-depth, a more in-depth explanation or walkthrough on these, just send me an email and we'll set up a time to actually dig deeper into any of these. All right, I'm going to give up and move on. But those videos are the quiz tool. It can be quite useful, and you can make, they could be a 3 or 5 minute video. It doesn't need to be a long lecture. It can be if you'd like it to be, but it could just be one concept, and then I'm going to check your understanding right there at the end. And if you've noticed that students aren't doing well, then you could take some time and either make a different resource or address it in class. These next 3 tools are really going to be dependent upon your discipline and a lot on your specific situation. The first one is Perusal, and Perusal is an online annotation tool, and it's kind of like community-based annotations. So let me go into it. You can upload your class readings into here. Students can then read them, obviously, at least hopefully, and then I did agree. There we go. And then they can make annotations. Other students will be able to see their annotations. They'll see like the most commonly highlighted areas, and then they can comment. And so the tool has changed a little bit over the years. And most recently, it has pushed away from like simple highlighting and is really pushing into like commenting. So I used this tool during COVID lockdown. So I was teaching in Nigeria, but I hadn't been to this. I started a new job and we couldn't get on campus. We couldn't get into the country. And so I was teaching AP Human Geography. And for a lot of the students, it was the first course that they had that was that reading intensive. And so we put a lot of our readings, I'm going to end the tour, on here. And students could go through, they highlight things, they can make comments. Other students can see them and respond to their comments. So I had like a whole guide, like we want you to, comment on 3 different things, and I want you to respond to so many comments. There were parameters that were set. Highlight, key vocabulary that would be relevant to that course and so on. And then at the end, they had to write a little summary, and then they could see each other's summaries and comment and respond and so on. So, and then as the instructor, it was really easy to come in and click and see who commented where. This was a test student, but had other students commented, I would have a whole list here of what they had added and what they wrote. And then I could also chime in. So if there was if misconceptions were forming and based on their notes that they were building in here, I could then make corrections to those here in the document. And then I could address those in my class as well. So if you have a reading intensive course that's based heavily online, this might be a tool to consider. If it's an in-person course, it may not. And if you're using kind of proprietary text, maybe not as well. But if you're using open resources, open access documents and stuff, this might be a great tool to look at and spend some time with. It's free. When you first add it on, they're going to give you a prompt to charge your students. How much do you want to charge them? And they suggest $15, but you have the ability to select $0 and set that up at the beginning. So I'm going to leave it here, but if you have questions on this one, if this is something you think would be useful, yeah, go ahead, Kevin.
With Perusal, if you choose, would I pay for my students to use it?
No. So, well, I think it gives you different models,
Okay.
but ultimately you can use it for free. You don't.
Okay.
No one has to pay to use it.
Okay.
And they'll ask you questions about that. I don't know how long that will continue to be the case.
Right. Right.
That may change. And I think we're seeing this as during COVID, a lot of tools kind of came on for either discounted rates or free. And now some of those are moving into paid models as other funding sources have kind of dried up. So I don't know if that's the plan here. I don't remember ever having to do that in the past. And then I saw that today. So
For now, this seems like a great approach. Like I found the book that I need for the course, which if I told students to go buy the book, it's going to be like $75 per book.
So
But I
there's a
got it.
caveat here.
I got it now here in Perusal.
Yeah. So if you want them to use like copyrighted material in here, they may have to buy the book through here. But if you have like your own documents or information and so on,
Okay.
or if it's so when I taught that geography class, we used an OER, open education book that you could post in here for free. If you have like, if you're working with like Cengage or a company that you could potentially purchase information in here. And the students could purchase those books through here, but I don't know what the university's policy is on that or what department policies are. So I wouldn't ask them to do that without checking with your department head or the dean of the school that you're in or somebody who knows that information. If you have stuff that's yours or that's open resources, this might be a great tool. If you're paying like for like Pearson or somebody, then you would need to check with them and see what the kind of legal issues are there.
But it was reduced. I think they suggested Perusal. I think Perusal suggested a price point, and I want to say it was like $30. And so I saw that. And I was like, oh, well, that's significantly less than the 75.
Yeah. And I don't know if that includes the books or if that is just for access.
It gave them access to it for like, I could choose 180 days or there was another option, but 180 was enough to get through the semester.
Okay, nice. Yeah, so definitely something to look into. And again, you may need to check with somebody in your department to see.
Okay, thank you.
What they think of this. Another one for engagement is Yellow Dig. Yellow Dig is designed to look and feel like social media. And so I don't know exactly how I would use this tool. It would be more appropriate, I think, or more beneficial in a course that's 100% online, or especially an asynchronous style course, so students have an opportunity to interact with each other. So it's mostly about engagement and interaction, and they get points based on if their comments are liked, if they post, if people respond to their posts, if they respond to people's posts, and so on. So it kind of gamifies interaction in an attempt to promote engagement. There are some components of this, though, that I think are useful. One is there's an option to have video responses and video messages. There used to be a fantastic tool that I loved called Flipgrid, and then it became Flip, and it was a video discussion board, essentially, is how I used it. It got purchased by Microsoft, and it actually got folded into Teams, but they killed it. I mean, I don't know, it's a travesty. So a lot of people are looking for a replacement for that. You can have students record 90-second videos on here. And then they can respond to each other in video format as well. That might be an option. That was a tool that I really, really loved because I could actually, when I was teaching online, I could see my students, I could hear their voice. And then for me, I think it's harder to fake a video response as opposed to a text response. So in discussions, sometimes you'll get these really superficial responses where people are following a little format that they've kind of created. It's a lot harder, I think, to do that in video form. And so I think they're a little bit more thoughtful on what they post. And I don't have any data backing that up. That's just my personal observation. That's something you can do here as well. And there's some other tools that you can build into this. It's called Yellow Dig, and you can add it again through the content market. I know I couldn't see that. I was here. The third one is Top Hat, and Top Hat is a student response system. And so I think Top Hat's going to have a lot of potential value. This can happen for in-person classes, online classes. You can set it up for asynchronous or live. And really, it can be 5 students or how many ever students that you have. This is a paid service that students pay for. So you would have to set that up at the beginning of the semester. There's a fee that they pay based on the length of time that they buy. It's one price if they buy it for a semester. If they pay for it and they're using it in other courses, they only have to pay for one license. They can use it in as many courses as it's being offered in. They could buy it for a year. They could buy it for a 4-year license. But it's a student charge thing, just for transparency up front. But what it lets you do is import slides. So you can import Google Slides or PowerPoints and then build in questions as you go. So you can assign these for an asynchronous course, but ideally, I think you would, if you were giving a presentation or a lecture, you could have these questions built in. Students pull this up on an app or on their phone or on their computer, can make a quick response, and then I'll show you what it looks like for the instructors. It's super simple to set up. All you got to do is drag and drop your PowerPoint, and then you just click add your questions. You type them in. It's quick. So once you're going through it, so here's your PowerPoint. You're giving your lecture, and then you can start the question. You can set a timer. You'll be able to view responses as they come in. So this was it'll give you kind of the number of just total numbers of each response. You can show the correct answer. You can open it. You can close it, and so on. So it's pretty straightforward. Some people may have used clickers in the past in your courses, or so I know you mentioned Kahoot. Kahoot is another tool. It doesn't necessarily build in your slides, but this kind of gives you that ability to just ask those check-in questions. And if you realize, I know half the students didn't understand what I just covered, it's a great opportunity to go back and try to figure out why. It's maybe they were zoning out, or maybe you just weren't as clear as you thought, or maybe it's more complex and needs a little bit more time. So I think this tool has could potentially have a lot of value for courses. But again, the downside is it costs money for your students. And again, if that's something you want to explore, you need to take that up with your department and figure out what their policy is. Please don't come and tell them that Kevin from Seidel said you need to use this and and said it's okay. So just make sure you have approval on your ends as necessary. And then other tools that we have, and these are, well, some of these are free and some aren't. So one, we are now an Adobe Creative Campus, and all of you and your students have access to Adobe Creative Cloud. And I don't want this to become an Adobe demo, but essentially you can have them do anything in Creative Cloud that you would like, and then you can have them share that out. And there are a ton of different formative assessments that you could use to build in here. You could have them create infographics, or you could have them create some sort of like video summary. You can have them do audio to cartoon AI generation. If you wanted to have them do like short comprehension videos where they, give a 1-minute explainer of one of these 10 topics, they can make those really simply in Adobe and share it out. We have workshops on the Adobe tools, and because it's so widely used, there are tons of resources online as well. And Adobe itself has a whole database of potential assessment already built assessments that they've created and that other instructors have created and added that you can access and kind of pull from there. So I don't want to jump into and make a tutorial on Adobe today, but that's available. We have resources here, and we're happy to help you with any of that as well. Another tool is Google Whiteboard. I'm sorry, I wrote Google Whiteboard. It is not Google Whiteboard. It's Microsoft Whiteboard. Google used to have a really cool tool called Jamboard that they have removed as well. That was my second COVID era tool that has gone away after Flip. But Google Whiteboard, and I have one pulled up here. It essentially, it's just a digital whiteboard that you can set permissions so that your students can write on it or interact with it in real time. And it's full of templates. So I just pulled a template here when I went to create a new whiteboard. and it gave me this template. These can also be, if you teach in a classroom that has those like interactive boards, you can use these as well in there. You can use the pins on them. These are all, you can also, it's built into Teams. I could have linked this in Teams, but unfortunately, when you do that, it doesn't actually transmit across the video feed. Students would have to have it pulled up on their own screen. So that's something to note if you're using it in Teams. But if you do screen sharing like I am here, it'll still share the screen. And then, like I said, this was just a template that they had. I could list some brainstorming topics. It could be, let's say I did like a jigsaw reading. So groups of students read a section of a different reading or a different topic of a reading. They could then go in and I could have the topics listed here. They could add kind of some summary notes or key ideas from that section. And then you could have them take a minute and read through the other sections, or they could present them out. And then you could, again, go through and kind of check their understanding and see how they're doing here. Then you can block them. You can remove the permissions that they have. And then you have this saved as a document that you could just link in your Blackboard page that they could use as a study tool or resource or whatever else from there. So I think there are a ton of possibilities here. I'll make a new one. So they save here. You can draw on them. I was doing some economic stuff in here. You can, if you click new, again, you can start with a blank screen, and again, it's just a blank whiteboard, or you can go through and find a template that works for what you need it to. You potentially could set these up for group work as well. So you would set one up for each group, share it with them, and then they as a group could kind of collaborate in this document, and then you could kind of come in and check their work and check their understanding and so on. So I think there's a lot of opportunity here. It just really depends, again, on you and what you're teaching and how this might work. Not just for formative assessment. There's a ton of, I think, potential with that tool. And again, it's Microsoft Whiteboard. It's not Google. I'm sorry for the my mistake there. Kahoot. Someone mentioned Kahoot at the beginning. Kahoot is a quiz tool, an online quiz tool. It is not free for higher ed. So I taught in secondary, and they're much more generous with what they gave us than what they're giving you. It's free up to, here's the licensing information for higher ed. $3.99 a month will let you have up to 50 participants per session. For $8 a month, it's 100 participants and so on. So really depending on your class size. I think with the free one, you're limited on what you can access. And also, I think you can only have 10 students in there. So not as useful as it potentially could be. But essentially what it is it's a game quiz. And students think they're awesome, I think. My students always love them. And sometimes I would even see them playing ones that they found in the hallway for fun. So essentially you just click host live, and then you can create your questions. You can pull them from other places. I'm going to put it in classic mode. And then I think I just click select. And then it looks like this. Students will get a pin. They log in on their device. And then you're going to get this music. I don't know if you can hear the music in the background, but it'll just put up a question, and it's like a timed response. So they get more points if they get a correct answer. They get points to get a correct answer, and more points based on how quickly they answered the question. And it will track them. There's like a leaderboard, and it's like this encouragement. Like if a student gets like 5 in a row, they'll get like a little fire logo or icon, and so on. It's fun, it's interactive, and it's a good way to quickly check understanding on a topic or review a topic. It takes a little setup on your part to build out the questions, and again, it's paid. So essentially a good tool depending on, again, what you teach and if it kind of fits what you're looking to achieve. The last one I'm going to talk about is Padlet. And a lot of what you can do on Padlet, you can actually do on that Microsoft Whiteboard. I don't know why I clicked that. Padlet, here we go. So with the Padlet, a Padlet is essentially, now they've kind of changed it a little. There's some more options, but it's essentially like a digital bulletin board. So you could ask a question here. Students can then, type a response. They can add information. They can add a video or a picture or a link or a document, but they could type something here. and answer your question. This is a great, like, you just covered something. Now you could have them, hey, jump on the Padlet, answer this question. And then you can really quickly scan the responses to see that they understand. I also really like this because then you could highlight one's responses that were really good and use that as a teaching example for the students. And then also kind of get an idea that maybe some people aren't understanding this. It's worth going back and spending some time on. They can comment on each other's responses and so on. Again, this is a paid service. They do have a free option, but it's limited. Let's see. I think I had well, it looks like I don't have the information up. I think with the free one, you can have up to 3 Padlets. That may be fine. If you want to store and save these, that may not fit what you're looking for. But again, I think you could also do this with some of these whiteboard templates for free. So again, kind of depending on what you're looking for, and if you're interested and willing to pay, to pay. And the last one are publisher resources. So I know many instructors already work with publishers, and some of those publishers provide slideshows and kind of built-in clicker response questions or quiz questions and so on. So it may be worth looking into any sort of publisher materials that you have access to already. And you can speak with your rep on that, or maybe others in your department that are using those resources. They may know what's available. Blackboard has kind of built-in LTIs for some publishers, not for others. So the ease of use may vary depending on the company and what the resource is. But it is definitely worth checking. You could speak with your rep and ask, do you have any sort of like formative assessment or just general assessment resources? And they'll know. I know I went during the open classrooms week, I went and observed an economics course, and that instructor had student response questions that were built into his lecture, and it was part of his publisher materials. So he didn't have to pay for anything else. He didn't have to really do a whole lot of extra work to set them up. It was just kind of included there. So worth checking. I'm going to leave it at this. There are hundreds or thousands of potential tools available. But again, I want to kind of come back to this issue here, that the most important thing when looking at tech integration or these tech tools is, do they fit the purpose and your learning objectives? Just checking on that, making sure that this is aligned with what you're doing, and that it's not going to take 20 minutes to do what should take 1 minute, or it's not going to take away from the learning in your course. Again, just a quick summarize, we talked about formative assessment as assessment for learning. It should guide your instruction, help check in on student understanding, and then also it can help you with the effectiveness of your lessons. It can be as simple as just discussion-based questions when that's appropriate, or maybe a check-in questions, exit tickets, any of those types of things. And there are, again, hundreds of tools available to help you with this. It could even be as simple as throw in the chat, if it's an online course like this, one thing that was productive today and one question that you still have, and your students could throw them in the chat, and you can then respond right there in real time as well. So it doesn't have to be complicated. It doesn't have to be kind of overwhelming with the tech. It can really, there's something available that can help you that is already at the level that you're at currently with your kind of comfort with the tech. So that's it from me. If you have any questions or want to go in depth on any of these tools or any other tools, please reach out to me. You can do so at kevin.harris@niu.edu, or you can email us here at CITL, CITL@niu.edu, and someone can help you. And that's it. So I'm going to stop the recording, and then if you have questions, you can ask them without having to be on the video. Thank you very much for attending.